3, 2, 1.
Welcome. I'm Pat O'Melia. I'm with the Hudson Media Group and Ready to Roll Studios, and you're watching From Sandy to Hurricane Florence. It's our way of paying it forward. What is that, 6 years ago now, we suffered Superstorm Sandy, and it still resonates quite a lot in our minds, and a lot of the municipalities have not completely recovered from that yet, especially in South Jersey, Ocean County area, Monmouth County. Some of the towns were hit far worse than others. Manahawkin, I don't believe there was one building. Were hit far worse than others. Manahawkin, I don't believe there was one building in Manahawkin that was not touched. Seaside Heights, a lot of damage there. Boardwalk taken out. Even going into North Jersey with Hoboken. Hoboken was flooded out. The same with downtown Jersey City. The City Hall in Jersey City. It's been there, since the dinosaurs. Never had a flooding issue. They would store all their important documents in the basement, lost all the important documents. Superstorm Sandy flooded out downtown Jersey City. It was a remarkable storm. If you have forgotten anything of Superstorm Sandy, just turn on the news, what's happening in North Carolina and the Wilmington area. It is very similar to Superstorm Sandy. They are suffering the way we did. Now, different areas of Jersey had different extent. I live in Jersey City. I live in what's called the Heights of Jersey City. There's a reason it's called the Heights. I'm on a hill. So we did not suffer any flooding. And my section of town, we didn't even lose electricity. Nothing. Actually, me personally, it was as if nothing happened. My studio at that time was in Jersey City. Had electricity. It was as if nothing happened. But as I would get around the city, the devastation was obvious. I was a lucky one. But I would go down to Seaside Heights. I worked with those guys down there. I got to see that devastation. There was a guy, John Camera. He was the BA in Seaside Heights at that time. And I was talking about the damage Seaside Heights and Seaside Park suffered. Seaside Park, pretty lucky. They had dunes there. Seaside Heights, not so well. John Camera said, take a ride to Manahawkin. You'll see what real damage was. And that's the case. Now, our telethon today is live, and is live between my two studios. We'll be switching back and forth. I'm in the North Bergen studio here, and my sister studio, Ready to Roll Studios in Seaside Heights, is also part of this, and we're broadcasting live out of there. We'll throw it to Seaside Heights pretty soon. I believe, right off the bat, you have State Senator Raymond Lesniak, an icon here in New Jersey, and I think he might be with the mayor of Seaside Heights, Tony Boz, who will take us through during the show what happened in Seaside Heights. He's a lifelong Seaside Heights resident. He's now the mayor. And the interesting thing with Sandy, and I don't want to put words in Mayor Boz's mouth here, but if you recall, prior to Sandy, we had Irene, where Chris Christie made the comment, get the hell off the beach. Everybody got off the beach. I was vacationing in Seaside Heights at that time, and we were thrown out of the hotel rather, and we had to go back to Jersey City. Not a big deal. It was like an hour ride, but nothing really happened with Irene. And when Sandy came, I think a lot of people just thought it was Irene, because I know in Seaside Heights for years they suffered with hurricanes and nor'easters. The stand employees, the people who work on the boardwalk, would get like a case of beer and we'll ride it out. There was no riding out Superstorm Sandy. Now today, you'll see on the show a donation through the Red Cross. The Red Cross is always the first on the ground. Probably faster than the government gets there, the FEMA gang. The Red Cross is there. They're always on the ground. If you can donate $5, $10, $20, whatever you can afford, please do it. You'll see it on the bottom of the screen. Send the money. Remember how we were with Sandy. That's how it is right now with North Carolina. Now, this is my second hurricane telethon. I did one with Hurricane Harvey, and these things are always fluid. And to make things even rougher, I decided to do it live from two studios. And we were supposed to have Senator Steve Sweeney with us, but something happened there. Mr. Sweeney couldn't make it with us. So in the big seat, I believe we're going to have Ray Lesniak there, the state senator. So if we're ready to go to Seaside?
They only have Senator Lesniak there. You want him to just open up?
Oh, yeah, all right, we can go a little further. I thought we had nobody else there yet. We got Senator Lesniak. I don't know if he's ready to go on his own. I can still go. But like I said, what we have here, you're going to see tonight Senator Lesniak, Mayor Tony Boss from Seaside Heights, Freeholder Bill O'Day will be coming in. I believe we have Chief McGill from the Jersey City Fire Department. I'm the son of a Jersey City firefighter. Oh man, we got representatives from Tom's River. My friend Lori down there, councilwoman from Tom's River. Terrence Turnbuck. My buddy Mo Hill, admiral, dentist, council president. The guy does everything. He's going to be part of it. And like I said, it's fluid all through the night. Hopefully everybody makes it. I know Senator Nick Sacco, he's en route here. Hopefully he gets here in time. So it's, like I said, it is very fluid. I'm waiting for a message that we can throw it to another studio. I see Bill O'Day. We ready?
He's ready to open now.
You ready? We're going to send it down to Seaside. Like I said, this is extremely fluid as we go back and forth. I know Bill O'Day just walked in, but we're going to throw it to the Seaside studio. Senator Ray Lesniak.
I'm a Democrat, right? If I'm going to wear a hat. Oh, that's true. That's true. That's true. No,
Can I stop looking at the camera now?
I go, but I'm a Democrat through and through. No, I have a lot of good Republican friends. In New Jersey, we have quite a bit. We have a good number. You know, not to say that it's like that nationally, but. Somebody's going to tell me when to start, right? Okay.
Start now.
Hi, I'm Senator Ray Lesniak. I'm actually former Senator Ray Lesniak because I left the New Jersey Senate after 40 years in January, but I'm staying active. And I'm staying active for causes like this that we're talking about today, talking about the victims of all the flooding and the hurricanes that we've experienced here in New Jersey and across America and Puerto Rico, from Sandy to Florence. And a lot of the problems that don't get attention is that so many people fall through the cracks. I mean, we have great governmental programs. There's a lot of bureaucracy oftentimes, and people get left out. And it's up to the public, the great American public, the great people of the state of New Jersey to step up as we always have to help our neighbors, our fellow Americans, and people across the world indeed. There's no country or no residents of any country with bigger and greater hearts than the people of America and of the state of New Jersey. And by the way, we'll be hearing from the mayor and council members of Seaside Heights right here where I am, along with council members from Tom's River. And the impact, I've had summer, I'm attached to the Jersey Shore. My family, way back when, the last 2 weeks in July, we would drive down to Wildwood and spend 2 weeks there. I've had summer homes in Monmouth Beach and now in Brick Township. I've been fortunate to be able to enjoy this great jewel that we have here in the state of New Jersey, the Jersey Shore. But unfortunately, and it's not just unfortunately, it is because of climate change. And New Jersey is ground zero. And as we have seen it with Irene, with Sandy, for the effects of climate change and these great storms that are inundating us. Indeed, I was up in Elizabeth during Sandy, left my home at Curtis Point, and luckily, we received no damage there. But in Elizabeth, our power was down for 12 days. As a matter of fact, what I would tell people is I had more influence over God than PSE&G. But for 12 days, we were out of power, and senior citizens and young mothers with children suffered great consequences. And there are things that our state still has to do to become energy reliant. In many respects, we're in the dark ages in terms of our ability to deliver reliable energy. Many of our electricity is from these power lines that we see in big winds. They come down, they knock out power for a long period of time. And I don't want to get too much into the detail, but suffice it to say that we still have a lot of work to do. There's still a lot of folks here who are still suffering from Sandy, excuse me. And most importantly, it's important for citizens to get involved both politically in terms of supporting reliable and renewable energy so that we don't have to, we can cut down on these carbon emissions that have been depleting our ozone layers. But also I know we are raising funds here tonight for folks who, again, who don't get the governmental assistance that's not there for everyone. Look what happened to the poor people in Puerto Rico. That was a terrible disaster. And we saw it with Katrina in New Orleans, in Texas, in Florida, again, and now here right in New Jersey again. First Irene, and then Sandy, and what's going to come next? You know, we never know. So we have to be prepared. My message to anyone watching here today and to talk to your neighbors, get involved in one way, shape, or form. And you know, you really don't have to encourage too much the New Jersey residents to get involved. Whenever there's any tragedy, you know, any need, we step up to the plate. And folks now who have suffered, still suffering here in New Jersey, in the Carolinas, from these horrible consequences of Mother Nature, they need your help. And that's what we're here to do. We're here to talk about what government can do. And it looks like we have one of our elected officials to bail me out here. Look at this. Just have a seat. My, a blast from the past, and we're on live.
How are you, Senator?
Good to see you. Sit down and introduce yourself and talk to, oh, we have to mic you up. And appropriately, you have your Hilton Head, South Carolina shirt on, which I'm sure was underwater.
Yes.
For
I called
quite
down
a bit.
there.
You did, yeah.
Yeah, and well, I mean.
Well, by the way, that's your camera.
Okay.
Okay. So tell us why you're here.
I'm here because, well, I'm a former Assemblyman, Lou Manzo from the 31st District.
Hudson County, by the way.
Yeah.
All the way up in Hudson County.
And during the experience with Sandy, as a lot of us have, we have shore property. I was living in Belmar.
By the way, let me interrupt you for a second. A great environmentalist. And that's what we need for our state and our country, super environmentalists. And former Assemblyman Lou Manzo certainly fits in that category.
Thank you, Senator. We had a major hit in Belmar, and as most of the people know who went through what the people in Carolina are going through, the worst of it is yet to come, and that's the dealing with trying to put your life together, put your home together, and the reason ancillary funding is so important is because we know government grants can only cover so much, whether it's FEMA, or whether the New Jersey resources that the state put together. They only cover so much, and then, you know, even your insurance only covers so much. And if you're lucky enough to have flood insurance, you know, that'll only cover so much. So all the money from, you know, that you raise in telethons like this are vitally important, as you realize, for those things that people don't have out-of-pocket money for to pay for that they still want to do in their home, things they need done in their home, supplementing, because there's always a deductible.
Right.
And you know, this helps essentially with cutting those costs. But Belmar was a nightmare. I went out on my porch, and I had a lake across from the house, and I thought I saw a fog coming in from the ocean. It was actually a wave of water. Went into the lake, and within I'd say 8 seconds, it was on my porch. Cars floating down the street.
Yeah.
And within a matter of, I'd say, about 2 hours, my bottom floor was completely underwater. You know, you had a literal river in the street.
Yeah.
So that stayed there for about 2 days. And believe it or not, it was like local mayors and stuff. We had Matt Doherty.
Oh yeah, great mayor of Belmar.
Great
Yes.
mayor, organized so much to get, you know, the little stuff done. Basements pumped in the next few days, before your insurance guy, before FEMA could get to you. Cleaning out debris, you know, just constantly, you know, so you didn't have refuse in your street piling up. So, and also put together, by the way, a small funding resource for town
Right.
residents, which was vitally important.
Assemblyman, we're going to move up, I guess, to North Jersey soon, but the point you raise is so important because the most significant important part of government is local government.
That's right.
That's where problems really get
The
solved.
rubber meets the road.
The nitty gritty.
Right.
And I just want to mention again that New Jersey has we're the #1, tourism is our #1 business.
Yes.
And that's why we have to make sure that the government is ready.
Yep.
We take action to avoid global warming and climate. We're going to be going back up to North Bergen because you know, these storms just don't affect the Jersey Shore.
No?
I was on earlier. I said up in Elizabeth for Sandy, my power was off for 12 days.
And we know what happened in New York Harbor.
There you go. All right, we have 4 seconds. Hey, North Bergen, pick it up. We'll talk to you in a little bit. Who is this guy?
He called me yesterday. He said, "Could you get down to the shore?"
You know, I'm here in
I know,
in Brick. Yeah.
I know.
So when you walked in, I was a little bit confused.
Yeah.
You know, because I'm saying, wait a second, I know this guy, but he's not a
Guy, just want to try. Reach out. Put your hand out.
All right, we're back here in the North Bergen studio. That was Senator Ray Lesniak, and Assemblyman, my buddy Lou Manzo popped up. He's also has a book he's got coming out. It's available now in the studio here in North Bergen. I have Freeholder Bill O'Day, one of my divas, our host on our shows here, and his guest is State Senator and Mayor of the Township of North Bergen, Nicholas Sacco. Let's give it to Bill.
Thank you, Pat. We have Mayor Senator Nick Sacco here. We're going to talk and reminisce about 6 years ago when Hurricane Sandy ravaged New Jersey, ravaged North Bergen. North Bergen is always prepared, but that was a storm that, no matter how prepared you are, there were some problems that anyone was going to encounter. Mayor Sacco.
Storm. The winds dropped, but the rains came, and it became a nightmare. You know, the original night, the hospital I'd gone to check the hospital out during the day. They were all set for the storm. They had their generators ready, everything seemed in order. During the course of the night, as the river came in and it surrounded the hospital was in the middle of the river just about, we found out that their electricity was gone. And they had people on life support and they had no means because their generators weren't working. For some reason the generators went out. So we went down there and we tried to get into the hospital through the river and couldn't, even with our trucks. So then we went back and found one with extremely high tires. And we were able to get close enough to the loading dock, get out, and carry a transformer into the building.
Wow.
That transformer was used to keep the people on life support. I think there were about 13 people.
Wow, that's amazing.
Overnight. If not, there was no oxygen for them. Their life support systems were gone. When I walked into the hospital, the person in charge said, "We're done. We can't operate anymore." So what we were able to do was to new generator that we brought in. We kept those people alive until he had the preschools on fire. Got hit by lightning. We go up to the preschool. The wires are down. There's the main office and some other building on fire. It became like kid.
Oh,
She's
God.
I'm the principal. I'm here for the fun. So I mean, that got resolved.
Wow.
I go back to my house and I get a phone call, and you would remember Marie Boris, God rest
her soul. Yes.
You know, Board of Elections.
Absolutely.
She was the superintendent, and she says there's a tree on fire outside my house, and she's a block away from me. And while I'm talking to her, my lights go out.
Oh, boy.
And that started the fact that the whole area was out of lights for a number of days.
Wow.
I live on the 10th floor, so I had a 10th floor walk up and down every time I went out. It was a number of times a day.
Oh, boy.
And we set up an emergency station down on Tunley Avenue where we have a police station. We use that. What we learned from that is that we were able to get generators through a grant for Town Hall, that God forbid that something like this ever occurs again, we can operate out of Town Hall. As it was, Town Hall was closed for those days. The actual government was running out of a building on Tunley Avenue.
Wow.
So we would go out every day, take tours. There was one story, and thank God it ended up okay. There was electricians that come in from other states. The man was from Georgia, not familiar with our grids or anything, and he was working. While I was there, the one street had power. He was on the street that had power.
Huh. Wow.
He hit a line. He actually collapsed. The electricity hit him, and he collapsed over the bucket he was in, and it was just hanging out of the bucket. Wow. And what he did, he knocked off the electricity for the entire block, which then went a week or two without electricity while they had it, and it started a fire in one of the houses.
Wow.
So it became one thing. Thank God that person survived. He recovered, went to the hospital and recovered.
I remember reading that story, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it was just a nightmare. You know, we would go, a great help to us was Secaucus. They had generators they would loan us. And 5th Street and the people on 76th Street getting angry at me because I didn't have a generator
Didn't have one for them,
I didn't have one. I said, I was here last night. We set up a generator. So, you know, what we did, we tried to borrow more to get other streets and get where people could at least plug in. Some people did something that was interesting. They was, I guess it was cabin fever. They'd rather plug in their TV sets into the generator than plug into the refrigerator. But I guess at that point, the food was gone out of the refrigerator.
No good,
wasn't any good. And at least to keep the children occupied, the TVs kept it going. Plus, they could recharge their phones. So it was quite a time, and you know, we needed a lot of help. The whole region and area needed a lot of help, and we got as much help as we could. There were some states, however, who have to live with the fact they voted down federal aid to us.
And some of them were in the South, I think, right?
Some are in the areas that we're trying to help right now. We're helping them now, and we're not going to turn around and say, you didn't help us.
Absolutely.
We're going to do what we can to help them. Any money that comes in, if this is our country, we have to help out our fellow citizens in need. And you know, we do it for other countries when it's a national disaster, but we're obligated now to help in every way we can to get money in. That would help people get their lives back in order.
Absolutely. Man, what about, did you have high-rise senior buildings, and how were they affected?
Yeah. Well, fortunately, we were able to keep food going in. Like, they were purchasing food and bringing it in. And they had one elevator that would work.
Huh, okay.
And that was the thing. By keeping emergency generators, at least the one elevator would work.
Wow.
So we were fortunate there.
Oh,
it wasn't comfortable.
No, no,
You
but
know,
you didn't have AC or anything,
It got
but at least
warm, no
yeah.
air conditioning. You know, it was damp and musty, but you know, we were able to get people up and down. And a week later,
Yep,
we all had our celebration.
Yeah, well, as I'm saying, I know in North Bergen that wouldn't mean there'd be no Halloween. You just have the Halloween on another date when things are back to
It
work.
was really, you know, it's almost surreal the way
Yeah.
things operated. But you know, thank God we all got through it. And I think all our governments functioned, and the people were very helpful and understanding. On the high rises on the water, there was one running out of gasoline for their generators. And their high rises, they're relying on an elevator.
Sure.
And we were able to get them, you know, they had to pay for it, but we were able to get them excess that we were able to get.
Great.
And we were able to keep them, you know, afloat. We kept visiting them down there because they were cut off.
Because they're on the low level,
Yeah,
right.
they were cut off.
But I got to say the story about what you did with the hospital. I mean, that's you know, that's heroic. I mean, you said you guys literally saved 13 lives.
You know what is always funny? People think it was a stage picture. If you look at that picture, we look like Rex was soaking
Yeah,
wet.
I don't think anyone's going to
Carried
walk through a river. I don't think anyone's going to walk through a river to get a picture
The only
taken
thing
of
that
it.
was someone took a picture, and that's what came out of it. But you know, at the time, you know, we didn't know how severe it was inside either. We just knew that we had to try to keep those people alive, and the others, you know, the nursing home, Harvard seemed to have a little better services going at the time. I don't think they went out completely. They may have lost some electricity, but they didn't have the same problems the hospital had.
Wow.
Even though they're next to one another, there were problems, but not of the same severity, maybe because of life support. Yeah.
Okay. So, Mayor, we got to wrap up our segment. I appreciate the stories you told, the history of what you learned, and kind of the great heroic actions that you and others did. Not only did you have other folks taking care of the problem, you were right there going into a hospital, keeping people alive. That's amazing.
Right. Hey, Lesniak, I'm here with former Assemblyman Lou Manzo from Jersey City, now a resident of
Belmont, New Jersey.
And we're going to talk a little bit about, and by the way, my best wishes and hello to my good friend, the great freeholder from Hudson County, Billy O'Day, who is up there in North Bergen.
Bill,
Lou, you know Billy.
Good to see you again, Bill.
And he went overtime and took some of our time, but that's
That's
okay.
all right.
He has
We expect that.
He has a lot to say, and he's been a great public servant for many years. So we're going to talk a little bit about your book, An Irish Lullaby. Lullaby. You can get it on Amazon.com, local bookstore, Barnes & Noble. So what inspired you to write this book?
Well,
Bill?
I was an Italian-American kid growing up in an all-Irish American
That's right.
Catholic,
Hudson County,
St. Aloysius Parish. And, you know, the friendships that evolved in the city, you can never explain to people who've never experienced that. And anyone who's ever had the, back then it was real parish life in the 60s and 70s. Up in his years and sort of waiting for the call to go to the, you know, the retirement home, and is searching to see if he was really relevant in life. And he, you know, confronts all of a sudden the head of the Planned Parenthood, who's a very big parishioner.
Yes.
And it doesn't get into politics at all.
Yeah.
It presents a strong story, you know, moral point, and it lets you figure it out. But the backstory of how these people relate to each other, how they get along, really, from being on opposite sides of an argument, is something that'll lift your spirits.
Well, great. I'm looking forward to reading it.
That's your copy.
So let me tell you my Irish story.
Go ahead.
So my mom cleaned house and took care of this Irish couple, Franklin Street and Elizabeth.
Right.
Bridget and Tom Vaughan. And needless to say, Bridget Vaughan was very, very religious.
Right.
Right. So they're in their 90s, in their mid-90s. They're in the same room together at Runnels Hospital in Union County.
Wow.
I would go and visit them.
Right.
And Bridget Vaughan would say, "When is the good Lord going to take us away?" Tom Vaughan would say, "Speak for yourself, honey." The great Irish wit. So I'm looking forward to reading this. I'm sure there's some stories
Let me
like
tell you,
that.
there are a lot of witticisms in there.
Yes.
About that, and you'll love the everybody who's read it, and it's gotten well reviewed.
Oh, great.
And,
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, you'll enjoy it immensely.
So here it is again, an Irish lullaby from Lou Manzo, Amazon.com. Go get it and enjoy a good read. And now, Lou, talk to us a little more about your new life in Belmar.
Yeah, well, I moved to Belmar just as Sandy was coming in,
Oh, wow.
and went through Sandy.
So you were there with Sandy?
Yes.
Okay.
And you know, like I say, the importance of what people might say, well, isn't the federal government helping out, you know, with money and stuff? It doesn't cover nearly what the folks down there in Carolina are going to need to get out, and it's really the local governments that make the difference. Yeah. As I saw in Belmar, they're the first people on the ground. And we had the money that they raised through Robin Hood and other groups last time went to help supplement. You could go down the list of things people aren't thinking of that aren't covered by typical funding and that are needed. And this also allows like the local governments again to set up a contingency to get funding in, like I say, that doesn't cover what people need.
Yeah. So and that's what we're here for. And that's what the Assemblyman is here for. And we're going to hear in our next segment, after we go up to North Bergen for their segment, we're going to hear from Mayor Voss here in Seaside Heights. The mayor has served as his first term, I believe, as mayor, but he was 35 years, I believe. 30 years, mayor's sitting over there. 30 years on council, so we're going to hear from him and other local officials from Brick, right? Excuse me, I knew that. Tom's River, and we're going to hear specifically about what happened to them, their experiences, Irene, Sandy, and now even Florence, right? Plenty of flooding now. Yeah. We're here with this telethon, yes, to raise money from the good-hearted people of the state of New Jersey, but also to bring awareness. Awareness of the issue of that this climate change issue is real. It's no joke.
Oh, no.
You know, there are some predictions that 50 years from now, the Jersey Shore could be underwater.
Well, not only that, but you know, we've never had a series of storms like we've had.
Right.
In the last 10, 15 years, like we're seeing. And you know, you always saw Carolina being threatened, but you never seen it get whacked.
Yes.
And this was a Category 1 when it hit.
Well, you know, it's what I realized though, the problem with when they're downgraded
is that it slows down.
It slows down.
And it does worse.
More flooding. So it's not the wind.
That's right.
But it's the flooding that's even worse.
And none of that
throughout the country came to us, and that's what America's all about.
That's it. The melting pot. So
what America is all about. We chip in. We you know, we take care of our own. Bruce Springsteen.
That's it. That's right.
We take care of our own.
We were probably the trailblazer of because that storm, no one ever thought it would do the damage it did in an area like we had.
Right.
And the whole country pitched in to help us out. It was nice, and now it's our time to reciprocate. And everything, if you notice, from Texas and even here to Carolina, everything that's being done, I guess they did off the Jersey model of how these towns, little towns, work together and planned.
And the Jersey model still left a lot to be desired.
Yeah, it did. It did. Well, remember, no one expected.
That's right. It was. You know, look. Let me, as many people know, Governor Christie and I were not the best of friends.
Right.
But I will give him kudos.
Yes.
He stood up.
Yes.
You know, and he stood up to the plate. He warned everybody in very stern terms.
Well, he
did the right thing.
He also, if you remember, he worked with the president at the time.
Yes.
To you know, all political differences
no
were
kidding.
put aside.
Guess what?
Work on a problem.
I think it cost him the presidency.
It might have.
He was vilified by Republican voters who disliked President Obama because when President Obama came here, when we needed help,
Right.
he embraced them.
Right.
Which is what you should do.
Not only that, he thanked him and
thanked them, and
recognized what he was doing.
That's what Democrats, Republicans, that's what we not only do we have to come together just at times like this,
Well,
all the
yes,
time,
we
right?
know. Yes.
all
Yes.
the time.
Yes.
And I think our politicians, Democrats, Republicans alike, need to learn from our citizens.
Yeah.
Because the folks who are stepping up here for this telethon, they're not giving because they're a Democrat or a Republican, and they're not giving to Democrats or Republicans.
that's correct.
They're giving to other fellow Americans in need.
And I think we've always had a better bipartisan.
Councilwoman from Tom's River. No. Oh, councilman and spouse? Yes. Are you going to come on air? We want you on air. No? All right. You'll be there cheering. All right. We're going to send it over to Billy O'Day. Freeholder Billy O'Day, I'm sure you're doing a great job and will continue to. Keep that money coming in and help the residents in need. We'll see you in a little bit.
Tell me when.
Yep, ready now.
We're back. Pat O'Melia here, Hudson Media, ready to roll. You just seen the feed from the Seaside Heights studio there, Ready to Roll Studios. That is Senator Ray Lesniak and Louis Manzo. Louis got a book out I know he'll be talking about later. We're going to swing it over to the North Bergen studio where we have freeholder Bill O'Day and Abe Anton. I believe he's the Director of Finance for the County of Hudson. If not, if I'm wrong, he'll straighten it out. Let's give it to Bill.
He used to be the Director of Finance. He became the administrator, how many, 15 years ago?
Something like that, yes.
15 years ago. So, Abe, welcome to the telethon. We want to talk a little bit about, you know how we can tell how many years ago was Hurricane Sandy?
Hurricane Sandy was 6 years ago, 2012.
You know why you know it's 6 years ago without even thinking?
Because Bob Menendez was running for
Bob
this-
Menendez was running, and Bob Menendez is running again this year. That would be
That's
part
correct.
of what we talk about. So I remember the day, may have been the day, what day did the hurricane hit?
It was on a Monday,
It was a
Monday
Monday.
night.
I remember seeing you Monday in the daytime and asking you if we were ready. And I was like asking, you know, and I often ask you loaded questions, but that was certainly a loaded question. Just give me some of your memories about when the storm hit, some of the problems and issues we had to deal with.
Because, you know, it was not a situation where you can go out while the storm was pending. And then obviously when the storm passed, then we went into the recovery mode. But what I remember was, you know, over the weekend and even that Monday, making preparations with County Executive Tom DeGise and also with Buddy Demolier, who at the time was the Director of Roads and Public Property, and Jack Burns, who was the Director of the Office of Emergency Management. So we coordinated all of the county activities in conjunction with the mayors. We made sure that our assets were secure as best as we can get them. We had to relocate some vehicles. We had to make sure that, you know, any of the vehicles that were used to transport seniors would be available after the storm. And then once we did as much as we could do, we all went to our respective places where we were going to stay to weather the storm. And then afterwards, the county executive and I, we went to where the emergency management office was. And at that time, you, Freeholder, as the chairman of the Public Resources Committee, kept in touch with me with issues concerning the county and Jersey City in particular. And at the time, Buddy Demolier was coordinating county operations and the response, which you know was very onerous. Mm-hmm. But you know, Buddy and Jack played critical roles in our response and in coordinating, you know, all the efforts, not just with the municipalities, but with the county and the other agencies.
And God rest his soul, Buddy passed away a couple of years ago. And we've named the building after him. We have to do the formal dedication. He was a Vietnam vet, too.
That's correct.
But I always remember, and as the days went on, he was praying, oh, things are going to get better, things are going to get better. And he finally, I think by Wednesday or by whatever day, he finally said he had to cancel.
I recall that.
He had to cancel his trip. But a couple of things that I remember were, and some of them were just symbolic, is trying to get the park open as soon as possible. If you remember that, bringing extra crews in, clearing out as many branches, because Mayor Sacco was here before. You know, some of it, people had cabin fever, but when people could get out of their house, even if it was 3 or 4 days later, now they could go to the park, throw a ball around. It kind of made people feel that life was getting a little bit back to.
That's correct, Freeholder. One of the things that we all talked about is trying to bring some normalcy to the situation. And as you know, Lincoln Park and Braddock Park, two of our largest parks, and they also act as a thoroughfare to get from one side to the other of the county. And so it was important that we dealt with the flooding situation, removal of the trees, get the playgrounds open, and show that, you know, we were on our way to recovery. And that was a big effort on the part of the Parks Department, which at the time, I believe it was Tom McCann, who was the Parks Chief, who did a tremendous job, and I think it was Mariano Vega, who at the time was the director of the department. So,
I don't think he was still the director. We sat 4 days out of the election, or 3 days out of the election, and school buildings, there was still no power. And there was it was kind of a funny story. It was kind of a funny story. So in the midst of it, you and I had gone and spoke to the people at the election board, and they were saying, oh, the state's going to send us generators. And you and I looked at each other and said, you know, no disrespect to the Republican administration, but do we think that a Republican administration is going to make it a priority to deliver generators for voting in a blue Democratic county? So I think it was a funny story, because I think he definitely still worked for the county at the time. Tommy Gallo, one day I went to some of the people that, you know, volunteered to work with me. I said, we got to find generators. And I remember he went to the Home Depot in Secaucus, and he had found like 30 to 40 generators.
That's correct.
And I told him, you just commandeer those generators.
Right.
It's a state of emergency.
Right.
And then I remember, I'm like, Abe, I'm just going to go there and put them on my credit card. Like, no. I'll get him a county credit card or voucher over there, and we'll take care of it right away.
Right, that's correct.
And we still have all those generators, right?
Yes, we still do, and they got deployed at the different polling places. We had county staff to operate the generators, so this way we could open up the polls and people can come to vote.
And I literally remember having to wait, and it was the night before the election was actually cold for early November, and I remember having to sit in a cold parking lot at Moose Hall, because I had to wait for somebody to let us in so they could put the generators into the building. So I very done with that stuff. After it, I remember you and I talked, because things never run perfect through that, and we said we all learn lessons from this, and we have to figure out how we not only better prepare, but for instance, the Juneau building. I mean, the Juneau building was heavy hit, because it's so close to the water.
That's correct.
Yet that was kind of where our emergency operations were. So
that's correct.
Having your emergency operations so close to the water, where if there's a hurricane and a flood, what's going to happen? I think some of the
when the surge came, water got into the building, and at the time we had located the utilities on the lower floors. Now keep in mind that we had not yet opened the building. The contractor was literally finishing up.
That's right. Yeah.
And unfortunately, because of the storm, you know, that just set back everything. In fact, we had to spend another couple of $1 million just to get the building operational. And what we did was we elevated the utilities. So not only is the building elevated, but now inside the building, the utilities have been elevated
more. Right,
so this way we can, if a storm like that does happen again, we can withstand it, and at the same time, hopefully minimize the damage. The other thing that we did was we also acquired another piece of property in Jersey City on higher ground, where we have an alternate emergency command center, so that we're ready to go there should the Juneau Center not be available.
And we've purchased additional generators for other buildings.
That's correct. The Juneau Center has its own generator that's elevated.
Right.
The alternate command center in Jersey City has its own generator that can generate provide power to the entire building. And we also have. So we're much better prepared this time should another storm of that.
Didn't get a hold of.
Right.
We knew they were going to show up.
That's right.
And we somehow had to figure out a way to get the building open so people that would show up would be able to. If you remember, there was one.
Didn't have electricity.
Right.
So the other thing that we did was, when we were able to get the building up and going again, we asked the welfare employees to come in. We worked out issues with their unions and to that nature, and then they came in and then they processed any emergent applications so that people would have benefits, until they can get back on their feet.
So 6 years later, is the county better prepared if we get hit with another Sandy, you think?
Well, we're much better prepared. Look, any type of storm like that, you're going to sustain damage. But obviously, we've learned from our mistakes. We've learned from things that we didn't know in the past. Are we much better prepared? Yes, but you're going to sustain damage. Hopefully, it's minimal. Even public service learned because, as you know, a major distribution facility in Jersey City.
I remember watching it. I remember seeing it.
Was underwater,
Yeah.
and that's why we parts of the county didn't have power.
Yeah,
So-
I think I didn't have power for like 8 days.
Exactly.
And the last thing, we got a little more than a minute left. We have like a radio station.
That's correct.
Is it still working? Have we?
Yes, we have a radio station. It's 1710 on the AM dial. We did it. It only transmits for 10 watts because it's really a travel information station. But one of the things that we did do is we purchased additional equipment that allows us to transmit up to 100 watts in the event that there is another emergency of this nature. We would have to notify the FCC. But obviously, if something of this magnitude would hit this area, we would then invoke the emergency powers, and we can broadcast throughout the county.
Because I remember one of the things then, there were parts of the county you could get the radio station, there were parts of the county you couldn't. So thank you very much, and keep up all the good work that you do for the county.
Thank you, Freeholder. Appreciate that.
3, 2, 1.
All right, I'm back. Pat O'Melia here, Hudson Media, Ready to Roll Studios in Seaside Heights. That was Bill O'Day, Freeholder, Hudson County, with what many people describe as the smartest guy in the room, Abe Anton. And that's probably true. All right, we're going to send it back down to Seaside Heights, the Ready to Roll Studios. Let's see who we got.
Okay, we're back. I'm Senator Raymond Lesniak hosting this segment of the telethon to raise money from Sandy to Florence, live here from Seaside Heights. And there are a lot of people suffering, as we suffered here in New Jersey from both Irene and Sandy, from the effects of Florence down there in the Carolinas. And this segment, we're honored to have the mayor right here of Seaside Heights, Tony Voss. Mayor, welcome aboard.
Thank you, Senator.
The mayor has been on council for 30
years plus.
30 years now, and now is the mayor. And we'll be interviewing my fellow Rutgers alumnus, Mo Hill, councilman from Toms River, along with Councilwoman Lori Ulrich from Toms River. So looking forward to that. It's going to be a great segment as well. So, Mayor, tell us about your side.
Yes, more so, yes.
Oh, more so.
Maybe a week and a half ago, we had torrential rainfalls, and within minutes, the streets were flooded in that area. It recedes quickly once it stops, but it causes a problem with homes, water going into driveways, sometimes passing driveways, and there's always that fear factor that it's going to be heavier and cause significant damage. Fortunately, 2 weeks ago, it didn't cause any damage.
Sure. So, as a local official, because you're at ground zero and the Jersey Shore is at ground zero, okay? What can, not only what can local government do, but what does local government need from the state and from the federal government that has not been forthcoming as much as necessary?
I think what we learned through Irene and through Storm Sandy, that we thought we were prepared. We weren't. We were complacent. Yeah. We had a plan, but that plan did not meet the needs of our communities along the strip here in the northeastern coast of from Island Beach all the way up north to Belmar, etc. We've come up, we've graduated, we've studied, we now have a strategic planning events, significant storms like that happen. But I don't believe that we're ever going to be perfect. Do is to align ourselves with other communities, and the state has to coordinate these meetings. They have to set up a council within the state to say, okay, we're going to meet every so often, either through emergency management or through a different system within the government, and tell us new things that are going on. Tell us experiences that they're having in Florence, in Texas, and other areas that were also hit. And what were some of the effects that maybe didn't come to us at that time, but maybe will affect us in the future, be it equipment needs.
Hazardous Materials Task Force to do exactly what you said about storms here, to get the communities together, and Department of Transportation wasn't talking to public safety, wasn't talking to these other branches of government. Then they finally came together. So what you're saying is something that we need to send to our legislators. You're a Republican, I'm a Democrat, together, okay, to send up the pipeline to, you know, make sure this coordination, as you say, needs more flow of information and preparedness.
Right now, and I agree with you, Senator, we have to combine, forget political differences or political disagreements. This is something that we all face together. The emergency management in the state works out well, but that's the only agency we're really talking to. We should be talking with transportation, environment, and many more agencies within the state.
How about education?
Education.
Yeah.
I was just telling you prior to our meeting today, I'm a former superintendent of schools in Spotswood. At that time, I was serving in both capacities as a council president and as the superintendent. The devastation here was nowhere near as severe as the Spotswood Middlesex area, but yet our schools in Spotswood were closed for almost 2 weeks. No water, no electric, no gas, no heat. So has an effect in our schools. What do we do with the children out for a long period of schools and still has not returned to normal because their houses were damaged? They just moved.
Yes, yeah.
Relocation of children because of these type of disasters.
And I don't have to tell you how much tourism is.
Ratables as we speak, 2018 down. So that has an effect on our taxation for our municipal purposes. But in 2013, we had another devastating event. We had a fire that destroyed a part of our border.
I forget the name.
That's a great deal of money that the state is helping us out with until we can get on our feet.
And will that be for operating budgets because of what you've lost in ratables and taxes and additional expenses?
There is no way that the community of Seaside Heights could stay together without that flow of money. But there's a caveat to that, which I personally like. The caveat is there's monitoring and good monitoring from the state.
As well they should be.
As well they should be.
Yes.
What are you doing with that money? Prior to every council meeting, agenda must be presented to the state monitor, and they check off. Why are you doing it? Why are you hiring 10 seasonal officers? We explain, because the tourism trade, we're trying to bring it up, and we have. It's coming back, but we have to justify, and there's nothing wrong with that. I personally like it.
Good for you. Good for you. This is a great example of Democrats, Republicans putting our party differences aside to do what we're elected to do, to serve the public, right?
Right.
So don't forget out there that the purpose of this is to bring help. So we're working together. And into the studio just came Rick Berkowitz. There he is. And will you be on the next segment? I don't, we're winging it. Two from now. Okay, so you'll be interviewed by Mayor Voss. I'm taking off. I'm going to be having dinner at one of Seaside Heights' finest restaurants, Genevieve's.
Genevieve's,
I'm told it's great.
It's excellent.
Fantastic. I'm looking forward to that. Mayor, we've never met, but I've heard about you. I've heard about your service. My good friend Marilyn Lennon.
She's wonderful.
And she's talked about you. She's talked about how great a restaurant Genevieve's is and what a great public servant you have been to Seaside Heights.
We work closely with her from the state level and on a private level. Remarkable things that she's helped us with.
As Assistant Commissioner of Environmental Protection under Governor Christie.
Under Governor Christie, but
Yes.
she is very knowledgeable to her field and guided us quite a bit during the storms.
Fantastic. Well, that's wonderful. So that's what we do here. Those of us who, spend our time, donate our time, we work hard. We put our effort in, and we do it because we love it. And we love it because the people here in the state of New Jersey are so generous and so kind. So see what you can do to help the victims in Florence. I'm going to be turning it over to the mayor for the next two segments. And I guess we're going back to North Bergen, where, again, my good friend, freeholder Billy O'Day, will take the helm. So do what you can. I'll see you next time around. Keep in touch. I'm Senator Lesniak.
I'm back, Pat O'Melia. I'm here in the North Bergen studio, Hudson Media Group studios. You were just watching our sister studio in Seaside Heights.
Because the Red Cross they're the boots on the ground. Whether it was Hurricane Sandy here a year ago in Puerto Rico, and now with Hurricane Florence. So just tell us a little bit. I mean, we think everyone would know, but we'd never take that for granted. What does the Red Cross do when it comes to such natural disasters, and then how can people help?
So thank you first of all as well for having us here. It's really important that people first of all know what we do, and then know the resources that we offer. So we really do try to actually start right at the beginning to really prepare people. It's very important that people are prepared should any disaster, whether it's natural or man-made, that they should be as prepared as possible. So we're always out there trying to prepare individuals. We're happy to come and talk to any group of people to share what are the things they need to do before something happens. So whether it's having a go bag, making sure you have 14 days supply of food and water at home, etc., those sort of things, documents, copies of documents that are important. So we're always out there trying to really prepare. So we have resilient communities.
So 14 days food supply.
14 days food supply at home. We say 3 days if you have to evacuate, if you have to go.
So if you have to evacuate, bring 3 days of food with you.
3 days.
Okay. 3 days of food with you.
3 days, water, maybe blankets, something that you enjoy, maybe cards, something that you enjoy as a family or as individuals that you would enjoy doing. If you have to go to a shelter, we always encourage people to take some extra blankets, maybe a comfy pillow,
right.
Just something so that when you're out there, you feel a little more homely.
And when you mean your paperwork, describe the type of paperwork people should take.
So things like, maybe some utility bills. Maybe you'll take a copy of your lease or your deed to your house, and make sure you have your meds are really important. So if you have medication.
They don't necessarily know what they're taking.
Right,
so I have high blood pressure, I have high cholesterol. They'd say, I'm taking something for that, and then they would say, well, exactly what are you taking?
Right.
And they're like, I don't know. So and it's hard for somebody to prescribe.
So all those things, and we, as I say, if you know somebody that's elderly that maybe needs help, so they have a go bag, but maybe they need some help to evacuate if that's the case. So always trying just to make people as resilient as possible, because the more prepared you are, the quicker you can then recover once something happens.
So that you go into communities where before something's going to happen, but you assume it may happen.
We're always going, and so we'll come to
You're always educating,
municipalities.
right? Yes.
Always education, I think that's the
Right.
key. Always to be educated and to be as ready as you can.
So then, after a hurricane or a natural disaster or even a man-made disaster hits, then what is the role that the American Red Cross plays?
So then we're always hoping that we can provide shelter, safe shelter, food, clothing, comfort. We have a health team, we have a disaster health team and disaster spiritual care team. Because at those moments when something hits, you know, it's really making sure that our clients are in the best hands and can recover again as quickly as possible. So when Florence hit, obviously we actually have deployed over 50 individuals already just from New Jersey and across the country. Thousands of people have come into the affected areas.
So when you have when an event like that occurs, you from all over the country you send your people in.
We do, and we will never send people in, you know, at the time something's hitting. So a few days before, maybe 2 or 3 days out, we'll start sending people who, often volunteers. We're 94% volunteer driven.
Wow.
So often our volunteers and some staff will go down there, perhaps to man a shelter, to get that prepared, perhaps to take emergency response vehicles. We have 140 emergency response vehicles down in the affected area.
Wow.
They can go out and do mobile feeding in homes that were impacted by the storm, and obviously the floods are still occurring.
Are there still a lot of homes without power down there?
Do you know, I would imagine there are. That's something perhaps that I can't really speak to as to
I remember the night of or the next day, there were over half a million.
Exactly. Right. So again, you know, it's having people thinking in advance. So we always share, don't use candles, but make sure you have flashlights and batteries for your flashlights. So all those, and to listen really to your local officials.
So if somebody says you should evacuate, you should evacuate.
You should evacuate,
right?
Absolutely.
A lot of people,
Absolutely. Well, it puts them in danger, and quite honestly, it puts other people in danger afterwards if they have to.
Because they have to try to go find them.
So you know, we're out there really trying to make sure, as I say, that we are managing shelters. There were over 200 shelters open at the very height of the storm.
Wow.
We have a little under 100.
Still open?
Still open,
wow.
Around 5,600 people a couple of nights ago. I think in total there were maybe over 96,000 overnight stays.
Wow.
So
Do I guess you identify safe areas to have the shelters, obviously. You can't put them right in the midst of where the hurricane's going to hit.
And we work again with, whether it's local or county officials, to work out where those safe places are.
So with all the great things that the Red Cross does, you can't do it without the proper reason.
So first of all, our partners, our community partners are incredibly important. Local, government, county, state. And then we are totally reliant on our volunteers. As I say, we're very, very unbelievable volunteers. As I said, we're working with community partners out in the community all the time, whether it's faith-based groups, other non-profits, etc. But the generosity of the American public is unbelievable, and truly that is what supports the work.
So when you have a disaster like
absolutely go to that cause.
So for instance, in this particular telethon we're doing now, all the monies that people will donate will go directly to Hurricane Florence.
Go directly to Florence.
And how, I know they're showing stuff on the screen, but can you just, you know, how do people do that? Where do they go?
So to donate to the Red Cross, there's several options. People can text the word Florence to 90999.
90999. Okay.
For a $10 donation.
Okay.
People can call 1-800-RED-CROSS, or they can actually go on our website, www.redcross.org.
So everybody who's watching, if it's $10 is the price of a meal at McDonald's. I think you can forego one meal at McDonald's to continue to support the Red Cross. Obviously, if they don't have the resources, it makes their job that much harder. And it's important not only that we raise money before and in the midst and right after these crises, but we should, every year when we figure out who we make our donations to, the Red Cross should be top on our list, because we know that there's always going to be somewhere in this country and throughout the world where disasters are going to happen. A friend of mine that came, came here now from Hawaii because of the hurricane that hit there.
And then they had the volcano.
And the volcano, and they farmers, and their farms were wiped out. So they were estimated for 2 months they're not going to be able to do any farming at all. So just to come and have some money to be able to pay bills, they've come here for a little bit. So.
As we say, it can be any type of a disaster. It can be anything from a power outage for a couple of days all the way through to a superstorm Sandy, a hurricane Florence.
Now, were you working locally here when we had Sandy hit?
Absolutely, I was. I had just joined the Red Cross about 6 months earlier.
Wow, really?
So that was my introduction to...
What did you do before that?
So I had worked with another non-profit prior to that, Hoboken, with our emergency response vehicle, and giving mobile feeding, giving out warm meals, and somebody comes running across the road, pointing to the apartment across the way, saying, do you know there's an elderly person on the 4th floor and another person with access needs on a 2nd floor? And really it was the coming together of people. And as I say, we also had incredible generosity. We worked with many different partners, including obviously the county, Hudson County, and having worked as well in advance prior to Hurricane Hatton, we are always talking, right? We're always trying to make sure our communities are resilient.
Because I remember I opened my office, we fed people there, and then we delivered meals to seniors. People would just come every day because there was no real form of communication. So they would come there just to say, when do you think this is going to happen? When are we going to get power? And I always remember, because I would almost tell PSE&G, listen, put my block on last, because I don't want somebody to say, hey, how come you got power on you? Because my office is now it's a couple of blocks away. It was only a block away from where I lived. So but I was conscious of that people just, the old-fashioned way, they would deliver messages.
Exactly, and I think that's what happens, right? We're so reliant on electricity
and technology,
and our phones
and technology.
But that's something else maybe really quickly as well, is to remember that we have an emergency app that people can download for free. And it gives them information what they can do before, during and after 14 different types of disasters may hit.
Wow.
They can find shelters. They can input a message that I'm safe and have it preset to send out to their family and friends. So that's also important, just to let other people know that they're safe.
No, that's important.
So that's a really important.
I mean, I literally remember we commandeered some county improvement authority vans with loudspeakers to just tell people we're going to go door to door, and just kind of the old-fashioned way when there was an emergency, you'd let people know. So. And
the hand-cranked radio.
Yes.
Again, that's one of the things we tell people to have. Don't rely on, again, electricity. Have that hand-cranked radio.
Absolutely. Have the old transistor radios. Still work.
Exactly, onto local stations.
Keep your batteries. You listen to the local station. Yeah. So we're just about out of time. I really appreciate you giving us all that information. Really, everything that you do. I mean, it's a labor of love. What you do, what all the volunteers do. You have so many unsung heroes, and to again just reinforce to the people that are watching, spend 3 minutes, donate $10. If you could donate more, donate more. If you got to wait till you get to your office on Monday, get to your office Monday and just make a donation, because Florence is devastating, but unfortunately there's going to be other natural disasters. Absolutely. And we got to be prepared, and we've got to make sure that you have the resources to do your job.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
All right, I'm back. Pat O'Melia, Hudson Media Studios here in North Bergen, New Jersey. Following up on what Frio the Bill O'Day just said, if you got $5, $10, $15, make the donation to the American Red Cross. You know your money's going to be used right. You heard stories about some funding sites recently where the money was used for other purposes than its intended means. That doesn't happen with the American Red Cross. They're the first group on the ground in a disaster. You know your money is spent right. And again, it's a tax deduction. We're listen to the bill talking about 9/11, or no, excuse me, 9/11, that was a disaster too. Sandy in Jersey City, like I said in the beginning of the show, I wasn't that affected. I live in the Heights, we're on a hill, there was no flooding, our electricity was on, but we were out of electricity for like 10 days. Directly across the street from my house, there was no electricity. And you started, after a while, New Jersey City, Bill O'Day getting generators in the county of Hudson. Jack Burns was floating around back then with OEM. We got Jersey City and PSE&G with, Dwyer there. Richie Dwyer, these guys did the job and they got us back on. But I'm telling you, I think if it went past those 10 days, things would have got pretty interesting in there in Jersey City. Now I'm going to send it back to our studio in Seaside Heights. Now in the power chair, the mayor of Seaside Heights, Tony Boz, and his guest is the council president from the town of Toms River, Dr. Admiral and Council President Mo Hill. Take it away, Mayor.
Good evening. My name is Tony Vaz. I presently serve as mayor of Seaside Heights. We're filming tonight in Seaside Heights, and it's the telethon to help our friends in North Carolina that were affected by Superstorm Hurricane Florence. Our guest tonight is Councilman Mo Hill, who serves in Toms River for many years. I've known Mo. He's got a great career, his background in the military, his background in business. And Mo, you were here, I know, because we served together during the time of Sandy. So you could tell us some of the things that happened behind the scenes and what you see coming for some of the problems for Florence.
Well, with the first thing was we had a lot of devastation. The eye of the storm came across in Atlantic City, but the way the winds were, the surge was heaviest up in Ocean County, and Brick and Ortley Beach and Seaside took the brunt of the storm. We had a number of houses that were just completely washed away into the ocean. We had houses that wound up on Route 35. We had other houses that were washed into the bay. There was the breach in Manilokin, which led to tremendous flooding in the Back Bay area. I know where my mother had a house in Green Island on the Barnegat Bay, and the storm surge within a half an hour went from normal sea level to about lines that were just being reinstalled, and they came down again. So we were without power for a good couple of weeks. I know on the Barrier Island here where your town is, Tony, there was no, they didn't restore gas lines for 2 months. So we had people that were out of their homes. It was devastating. And it was a long rebuilding process, and we're still rebuilding. You see homes being rebuilt along the Barrier Island and on the Bay side. So it was a long recovery.
Similar here in Seaside, we're not completely rebuilt.
Yeah.
We're probably about 60%, and I imagine you're even more than us.
We're still down probably $2 billion in ratables, which affects your tax rate. It has an effect on the municipal school rates. It's difficult. We did get a lot of help throughout the country. And the good part about being an American is that when something happens in one part of the country, everybody kind of binds together. And I thought about this today when I was coming over here, is that every part of this country is susceptible to some kind of natural disasters. We've got, on the East Coast and the Gulf Coast, we deal with hurricanes and northeast storms. If you're along the Mississippi River in the Delta, you've got constant flooding issues. The Mississippi is, in the town of New Orleans, the levees, Mississippi River is 10 feet higher than the town of New Orleans. So when they had the breach during Katrina, the entire first floor of a lot of the buildings in New Orleans were flooded. If you go further west, you've got, in the Midwest, you've got tornadoes that strike periodically during the spring and summer seasons. And if we go out west, you've got the danger of, of fires. You've got wildfires, and you've also got earthquakes out there. So every part of the country is susceptible to Mother Nature. So when an event happens like this, we all kind of bind together. We had a lot of help from organizations all over the country. I mean, in the area in Toms River, I ran into power companies that were from as far away as Alabama and as far west as Ohio. Carolinas have been hit with tremendous rains and flooding, so it's our turn to step up and help them.
You and I have spoken about this and how we have to be kind as they were to us and help them knowing that they're having the same problems. So again, we look for donations and other supplies, and you can donate. This is something that we're encouraging New Jerseyans. We had Senator speaking before, and the senator had stated, we don't have politics when it comes to bad times. We forget about Democrat, Republican labels, and we become unified in the United States. And that's what we're all about in this country.
Well, we are. It's, the beauty of this country is that you know, we're an amalgamation of cultures from all over the world, and the one unifying thing is that we're all Americans. And when somebody suffers a devastating loss from any one of these natural disasters, the outpouring from the whole country is what we, and then help out our fellow Americans. You know, it could be a tornado, as I said, it could be an earthquake, it could be a forest fire, or it could be a hurricane or a superstorm like Florence hitting the Carolinas. So we all pitch in, help one another out, and sometimes it's monetarily, other times it's people donating their time and their effort and their skills and helping people rebuild.
I know, how many committee people do you have on your township council?
We've got a council of 7 councilmen. We have 2 councilwomen, 5 councilmen, and we've got a mayor. It's a mayor form of council, form of government. And you know, we cross party lines when this stuff happens. I mean, we don't look and say, well, I'm a Republican, you're a Democrat. It's, you know, we're all Toms River residents, or we're all Americans. So there's no party politics when there's a natural disaster. You know,
Obviously,
everybody works together.
since the storm, we've all been conscious. Every time we hear the weather forecast, we become more conscious than we were before. We were complacent, most of us.
Project, the dunes are going to be 30 feet high. I was over walking along there, and you can no longer see the ocean from the boardwalk, but it's a protection. Right. So we're going to lose some sand with northeast storms. We understand that, but the dunes are going to protect the mainland, and I think that will also help us protect the Back Bay areas. Right. If we can protect the dune and keep from breaching like we had in Manahawkin with Sandy, then hopefully we'll cut down on the flooding on the Back Bay areas, and also protect the shoreline. So, you know, the project's ongoing. We anticipate it'll be probably finished sometime this year. The beaches will be enormous. I mean, I was over there. Some of the beaches are 300, 350 feet long, which is much longer than what we had in the past. So it's a protective mechanism, and the Army Corps is going to come back every 5 years and replenish any beach that we lose. So it's kind of an insurance policy for the next 50 years. It's a constant battle. Mother Nature is usually going to win, and on the barrier island, you kind of buffer us on the mainland, so you take the full brunt of a lot of these storms, and we need to have that dune and beach protection. That's critical for this barrier island, all the way from Manasquan down to the Barnegat Inlet.
Our neighbors to the south of us, Seaside Park, the borough of Seaside Park, they've had dunes for many, many years. They've had, during Sandy, some destruction, but because of the dunes, it was less than the rest of us going north. And that's what you said, protective.
Yes.
I think that's a good word.
And I was surprised. We came over a couple of days after the storm with our chief of police, Mike Masternardi. He drove us around, and I asked him, with the devastation I saw in Ortley, I said, can you go down into Seaside and Seaside Park? And when we got into Seaside Park, I was surprised. There was very little, there were down power lines, and there was flooding on the bay side, but on the ocean side, the houses weathered the storm fairly well because of the dunes. Right. They had much taller dunes than we had at Ortley, and they were able to survive for the coast. And I think that's probably the single biggest thing that the government and the state can do, pulling this together and getting this project done. It was a long time. We had to cross some private property issues, but eventually everybody signed on, and we're going to have a continuous dune going from Manasquan all the way down to the Barnegat Inlet. So it should protect us, and hopefully future storms, we're not going to get the devastation that we had during Sandy.
Right. Well, I want to thank you for coming and sharing your thoughts and your past experiences, and I like to make our listeners aware that they can make their donation and pledge, and we support, and we will, as a community and as a state, work hard to help our friends in the South.
Tony, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me. Okay, good job.
We're back here in the North Bergen studio, Pat O'Melia, Hudson Media Group. That was Tony Boz and Council President Dr. Admiral Council President Mo Hill, one of the good people down here in Toms River. As I stall for time here, as we wait for freeholder Anthony Romano, one of our divas here, we produce Stick at Night. Anthony Romano is the freeholder from Hoboken and parts of Jersey City. from Hoboken and parts of Jersey City. I get to kill a few minutes here. We have Chief McGill. He is the chief of the Jersey City Fire Department, and he'll be talking about his experiences. He was on the front line there when Sandy hit Jersey City, so he and Stick Romano will discuss that. One of the things that is discussed quite often here in Hudson County and in Seaside Heights is protecting from another superstorm. Yeah, I'm 61 years old now. This was the first storm I have ever experienced like that. You know, we had some nor'easers blow through here, but there was never really, I don't know if it's global warming, whatever the case is with Superstorm Sandy, but the thing is, should we take all these precautions to protect ourselves? In Hoboken, they're talking about building like a seawall around Hoboken to protect the city. You know, Hoboken, I think Hoboken's actually below sea level. Seaside Heights, I think the Corps of Engineers are going to start working on an 18-foot dune. Now, my kids just bought a house in Seaside Heights. You know, I go both ways on this dune. You know, to protect the town is great. For tourism, not so good. We may not be able to see the ocean from the boardwalk. The thing is, we're going to spend billions of dollars protecting from what may be, as far as the Northeast is concerned, another superstorm. So and that's your taxpayer dollars at work there. You know, should we wait for a second one? Should we throw the billions of dollars at it? You know, there's smarter people than me making those decisions, and we're going about it. So not making them, they've made those decisions. And, you know, 10, 15 years down the road, we might be saying, you know, that 18-foot dune over there or that seawall. I don't think the seawall is ever going to happen in Hoboken. But, you know, anything's possible in the world we live in today. But, you know, it's hard to argue it when we're going out the next day and we start seeing the devastation and, you know, watching it on the news and going down to Seaside Heights where the boardwalk was blown away. And then I took the tour of Manahawkin and a lot of those towns like Seaside Heights, Toms River, I think Toms River still has like 20% of their rateable base is still, you know, offline. And those are monies that, you know, the town has to figure other ways to come up with. And, you know, you're talking 6 years out, and there's still towns that are suffering. Seaside Heights is still suffering from $10, $20, whatever you can afford. For that matter, I just understand Mayor Sacco just made a sizable donation. Whatever you can afford, please do it. It's tax deductible. There's blood drives going on. There's a lot. Remember all the needs we had in Sandy? These are the needs that they have down in North Carolina now. Yeah, I know there's some organizations running water down there, baby food, diapers, and that sort of thing. What really fits and is easy to transport is money. The Red Cross knows the routine. They know the drill. Make the donations. If you can, donate some blood. But really what they need is money. The more you can send down there, the more we can help, the faster North Carolina and their residents can back on their feet. You know, people have lost everything, homes, you know, furniture, automobiles. I think to date, 35 people lost their lives down there. All of that, you know, if you remember from Sandy, you know, you're waiting for the insurance companies and FEMA, you're waiting a long time. If we can help these people get back on their feet, keep the kids in their schools, in their regular communities, they don't have to move away. You know, again, we got people in New Jersey 6 years out. They're still waiting to get back in their homes. That's what's facing the people in North Carolina. So hopefully, with your generosity, and one thing about people in New Jersey, we do pay it forward. So please, when you get a chance, go on your computer, make it on the screen, make your donations. It will be truly appreciated. Now, for you pet lovers, I think you're ready with that stuff, Greg. Not only are the humans in trouble, there are pets that need some help. So take a look at this. And again, please, $5, $10, $20, whatever you can afford, it is a great cause. Please help. Now let's take a look. We're back here in the North Bergen studio. We're still waiting for the freeholder from Hoboken, Stick Romano, but our other studio in Seaside Heights, ready to roll, is ready. I understand Councilwoman Lori from Tom's River is going to host.
Is Councilwoman Lori Urick. Lori is a council person from Tom's River, elected last November in 2017, and this is her first year. Lori, good to have you on.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
In our conversations, we spoke about you as a non-political figure at the time, and your own situations living across the bridge weren't as devastating as here, but it still was devastation to your family. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so actually there was a lot of devastation. There was a lot of devastation across the bridge on the bay side, but luckily for my family, we didn't have any flooding. We just lost one tree, so it didn't hit the house or anything, but we were without power for 12 days. And a big reason for that was there was a huge tree down the street that had fallen and blocked the entire street and took out the power lines. And about a week after, or 12 days after the storm, a crew from Virginia came up and cut the tree out of the road, and they didn't get rid of all of it, but they got it so that we could repair the electric lines.
Isn't it amazing, the guests that we had here today, and we still talk about, never mind on a television show, we still talk about it in our communities, how other states came here to help us. And you had that Virginia.
Yes.
We here had all over, Texas, Florida, Georgia, Carolinas, just the goodness of people.
It's amazing how people from different states and different counties, and they just come to quite a long time. They rebuilt hundreds of houses, and so now they need help.
Right.
And we know what they need because we've been through it.
They were here for 3 years in Seaside Heights. Wow. 3 years.
Wow.
Their ministry is to serve their fellow man, and they did. They took people that had no insurance, their houses were pretty well destroyed, and rebuilt them at no cost. Not only supplying them with the materials, but with their labor and love. And I agree with you, we have to reciprocate.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, I know you worked, tell us a little bit, were you working during that time?
Yeah, so I work at a hospital, and so of course, I'm actually a registered nurse, but I don't normally do bedside care anymore. I work in the IT department, but every person in the hospital is emergency personnel, especially during a storm. So I was actually at the hospital during the storm, and then we had a couple of generators, and one of the generators failed. So we went to emergency power only, so only vital services like ventilators and things like that could use power. So our computer systems were down. So we actually, since there was nothing for me to do in the IT department, I was recruited to go into the ER and do triaging, which I had previously worked at another ER as a staff nurse. And I also was running lab results from the lab up to the floors, because normally then affected the nuclear power plant that caused major devastation.
Again, we'll have to look at, in Florence, how is their medical field doing? Are they having problems? Are they up and running? And I agree with you, they're probably having some severe problems.
And something simple like you think about someone's medical record. So if you come into the hospital and you have an allergy to penicillin and you're not conscious,
how do you know?
And they can't access your record, they're not going to know. So that's a key feature too, paper or electronic. In Louisiana, when they had the floods there, they lost a lot of paper medical records. So either way, you don't have that access to the information. So it's really vital to get them back up and running as soon as possible.
I know you have 3 children. I know they go to Tom's River schools.
They did.
So
they've all graduated.
But during that period of time,
they were
tell me about their experiences. How did they?
So they were actually out of school for I want to say I want to say it was close to a month, because Toms River High School North was being used as a shelter. So there were homeless people, people that were homeless before the storm, and people that had nowhere to go after the storm. And they were staying at Toms River High School North, and they couldn't bring the students back while they had people staying in the school. So they, just had I guess not quite a month, a couple of weeks they had off. And a lot of people wanted to volunteer because, like you said, all the people coming together, they had too many volunteers. And they had so many supplies being dropped off that they just had rooms and rooms full of supplies that people needed to sort through to figure out where to distribute them to. So
These
it
kind
was
of
really,
disasters.
I mean, they have a daughter in college in South Carolina. So she was evacuated, she is home, and they don't know when she's going to go back. So one of the storms they had down there, they had the school closed for a month. So they're talking about putting some of the classes online to continue the education. But then I can tell you, as someone who's taught an online class, that if your curriculum's written for the classroom and you need to pop it online real fast,
It's not going to be
not
that
so
easy.
Yeah.
I mean,
so
these are things that
challenge.
normally we don't think about. But it's a whole plan. Schools, community, people, church organizations, all this is medical. This all has to be in the plan. As I'm going to emphasize again, our part of our discussion tonight is to help our friends in the donation. So I'm asking our viewers to be kind, recognizing that many people from throughout the United States came to help us, and it's our turn to help them.
Absolutely.
And you and I, we've talked about this, and we're friends. You're a Democrat, I'm a Republican, but both of us agree. It doesn't matter if you're D or an R. We're together as a country and as a community to help one another.
Absolutely.
I'm going to ask you some other questions about the future. I know that you're new on the council. Knowing that this happened, Florence, now, do you see a vision in yourself talking to your colleagues on your governing body to say, you know what, let's revisit, find out where we are, let's get EMR in and so forth?
Sure. Well, I know, as Councilman Hill was saying, one of the big things we needed to do was protect ourselves from future. Hill was saying one of the big things we needed to do was protect ourselves from future damage. So the beach replenishment that the federal government is doing is huge. We do have an Office of Emergency Management in town, and so I know that they have developed some plans to deal with a future storm, because the storms are becoming more and more frequent and greater in veracity. So I don't know the details of those plans, but I do know that we have developed some plans as a result of that.
Florence assisting in donations. Thanks again.
Thank you.
It's my time to say thank you.
I'm back, Pat O'Melia. We're in the Hudson Media Studios here in North Bergen. You just seen Mayor Tony Boss from Seaside Heights and my buddy Lori, Councilwoman from Toms River. I thought Lori was in the power chair, but it turned out it was Mayor Boss was still in there. And guess who showed up in North Bergen? Freeholder Anthony Romano. Just let me remind you, please donate 5, 10, whatever you can to the American Red Cross. They're the first people on the ground. They know how to handle these types of disasters. Now, without any further delay, Freeholder Anthony Romano and the Chief of the FD of Jersey City, Chief McGill, take it away.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here for such a great cause. From Sandy to Florence, our live hurricane relief telethon. I think that it's important that we take care of our own victims in this country of natural disasters, and that it's of the utmost importance. We seem to always worry about outside events that are happening. Well, let's take care of our own right here. And tonight, we're lucky I have with us another Jersey City born and raised, good friend, and is doing a great job with one of the finest police departments, the finest fire departments.
Get that right, buddy.
in force of habit, in not only the state, but I think in the country. They're just doing an outstanding job. The morale is high, and it's a department that's, honestly, correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, that has changed in age.
Oh, yeah, we're a lot younger than we used to be. A lot of through attrition, We have about 600 members, and probably we're close to 40 to 50% have less than 10 years on a job.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Now, you're
we
chief
lost
about a year yet?
yeah, I became acting chief, part of FEMA, Region 2. There, I actually talked to the one captain this afternoon, and they're down in North Carolina. They were deployed about 10 days ago or so with the whole New Jersey task force. So they've been busy. He said they thinks they're going to be released maybe this weekend. They do 14-day deployments. About 70 people go down. They break them into 2 task forces, about 35 apiece. It includes firefighters, police officers, EMS people, doctors, engineers, structural engineers, construction workers. Basically there to assist the locals in where they went to was North Carolina.
Well, I don't think a lot of people realize and know that, and it's an interesting fact that Jersey City sending down police and fire. And I think back, it was just recently 9/11 for the 9/11 anniversary event. When the Jersey City Police and Fire, I know I was with a detail of the Hoboken Police and Fire and EMS that went over there to help out. There is a brotherhood and sisterhood that I guess unless you're in it, you can't understand it. You know, military and police, it's a very bond of closeness that I always think when we were over there at night 9/11, to look at those fire trucks in the rubble, they look like Matchbox.
Yeah.
And how those firefighters went charging in there, not knowing what the outcome's going to be. I'm fascinated. I'm five-star chief of FDNY who perished in the World Trade Center. And I
53 years, still live in the same house I grew up in.
And you still have that enthusiasm after 32 years.
Yeah, I love the city. I never wanted to leave. And it's getting better and better now.
We were here during the, you know, I'm Hoboken and Jersey City. My dad was downtown. Chief Crimmins last night I had the honor at a Hoboken well, he was the president of the ambulance corps, Tommy Malta.
Okay.
He retired from the ambulance corps also. And I was honored to be there with the fire and police and speak. We gave him a proclamation. And Tommy does a great job. But the new chief, acting chief Crimmins was telling me how the firefighters now even becoming more, as the police have, involved with community events. And what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that was one of my goals, is to have the fire department get out there more in the community. We're trying to emulate what the police department has been doing in Jersey City. Best way to get the representation of the community to be part of the fire department is to get out there in the community and convince them, show them what we do, and convince them that they want to be, or try and convince them that it's a good job and they want to be firefighters or police officers. So the police department has done a great job in Jersey City with recruiting the youths and the people that actually grew up in Jersey City, as opposed to the out-of-towners that just
diversifying.
Move in. Yeah, you wanted to diversify and look like the community you serve. So one of my biggest things was the community outreach. So I teamed up with all the council members. I go to their meetings and spread the word. We go to all the local high schools. I have a new recruitment team out there. We did a really good push for the upcoming test that's coming up. The application's already ended in the end of August for this year, the next firefighter list. But yeah, we're doing the best we can. You know, I have a vested interest because I was born and raised in Jersey City, and Jersey City did a great job bringing me to the point where I am now, and I never left. And I see the opportunity there for everyone else, the kids that are growing up in the city, to aspire to be a fireman or a police officer.
Two things before I ask you about the safety of the buildings and how you're on top of that. Two things that stick in my mind. I always forget to mention it to you. And to me, these two exemplify what, to me, when Hoboken had companies, sometimes in the different towns. Obviously, North Hudson has North Hudson. And I thought of the second thing. It was a very cold night a few years ago. There was a tragic, tremendous fire in which a police officer's apartment on the top floor was destroyed too, in it, a restaurant on the bottom. That would be about 5:03 or 5:05 Washington. It was a freezing night, and the Hoboken firefighters were fighting it. It was a major alarm, and here comes the battalion of Jersey City firefighters, and as they were relieving the different companies, and I got a picture. It's on my other phone. I always want to send it to you. I forget. Of those firefighters, it looked like a troop of infantry when they were being relieved by another crew from Jersey City. been through the war. It was below freezing that night. I was standing there with Chief Ferranti, and they just did a yeoman's job. That block could have went up, and it was Hoboken working with Jersey City and North Hudson Regional. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, a lot of people, I think there's a mutual aid. I know there was comments, political comments about it. I look at it as from the emergency. I was proud. I stood there. I went over to those Jersey City firemen. They were in the truck getting coffee, and I said, "You guys did a great job." To the Hoboken firefighters, to the North Hudson, because it seemed to be a natural come together. Everybody knew what they had to do. There was no bickering. There was no, and I've seen it happen with us on midnights with the Jersey City Police, or with, especially with the Jersey City Police, or with, especially Jersey City Port Authority. Sometimes they put a special relationship there. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, we call it a brotherhood or a sisterhood, and no matter what fire department you're from, whether Jersey City, New Jersey, or anywhere else in the world, there's always that common bond. Everywhere I've gone throughout the country and a couple of places overseas, everybody has the same issues in the fire department and probably in the police departments too. So there's that bond of the things you go through, the things you deal with, the policy.
The has been great, and the state police, NYPD, when I was the incident commander in the water. I think back to my father, who was a police officer, union president, and he had such a relationship, they said, with the fire department. They did their first together, the first pay raise together, their parity, and my father always believed in that closeness. And obviously it drifted in times, but it seems to have come back with the realization is that it's necessary to work together. For me personally, I'm honored that you invite me to the ceremonies. I think it's important, not only as an elected official, I'm proud to be, police captain, but to support my fire departments. I have a good relationship with Hoboken and Jersey City, and I just want to thank you for allowing me to attend always your promotion and your appointment ceremonies. We just had one recently. Jersey City just had a wonderful ceremony of promotions, deputies, battalions,
Every
and
rank
captains.
we did, yep. Yeah, no, it's after 9/11, and even probably prior to that, police and fire and EMS, you start to realize that you're at more and more emergency scenes together. And you're working together more and more, because unfortunately some of these incidents are getting larger. And even the smaller ones though, you're all going through the same things. You're all mentally going through the same things. Days after, you're dealing with the same issues, whatever else. So you're really bonding that way too, because we're all working together. And that's the way it's supposed to be. In Jersey City, it's no longer the fire department and the police department, it's now the Department of Public Safety. And we're now divisions under them, so we really are the same team now. And we work together well, and it's been going great.
At a Hoboken Council meeting the other night that I attended, the firemen were there for some other issues.
Yeah.
One speaker, one union president brought up the fact that, now we're responsible for things in the water more than ever, incidents that might happen. Also, as we said, the training. They talked about the EMS component. Are Jersey City firefighters all EMS certified also?
We're yeah, so they have EMS under their umbrella, but they're actually a civilian component of the fire department.
It's not firefighters.
They're not firefighters, but they're trained to a similar type level of first responder. The last, I think it's now 4 or 5 classes we've gotten on the job. One of our requirements now is to be trained as EMTs, emergency medical technicians. Part of that is due to receiving federal money via a grant. That's one of the stipulations in the SAFER grant, is that they actually have to be a multi-purpose player now. You can't just be a firefighter. You have to also have some type of first responder or EMS training. So now they're all EMTs. Right now, I think we're about 140 EMTs that we have on the job. We're processing a class now. We should have about 28 to 30 new recruits starting in October, and they'll probably be on the line after the new year. So we'll be back up above 600 of a force of the fire department, which is a level we're supposed to be for the SAFER grant, and also it's probably the highest level we've been in years. Our mayor's been doing a great job of supporting us, so that actually allows us to keep all our engine and ladder companies on duty almost all the time. So we've been doing a good job. I just want to give a little shout out to Brian Crimmins, the acting chief in Hoboken. He's also a prep graduate. I was prep 83. So we bond together that way too, but I wish him the best of luck. I went through the same thing as the acting appointment. It's tough to sit around and wait, But you mentioned the bonding and the brotherhood when Hoboken came up to Jersey City. I talked to a lot of those guys in that firehouse.
They didn't want to leave.
They did not want to leave.
They did not want to leave.
And our guys in Jersey City and girls loved having them because there is that brotherhood, the bantering going back and forth. It's you know, living with each other for 24 hours is a long time.
And also, you
a lot
know,
of stuff.
what got me with that, I mean, I was so happy to hear that a lot of the firemen that are good friends of mine, they really, and I think that a lot of people don't realize that it's important sometimes to train together, because I think he's showing a lot of people's fear was, oh, you got no fire. Will he care about the fire department as well, being a police officer as being a police officer? But I guess from his experience with forging relationships with FDNY, he's shown that I think that he's fair. And I think that that's something else that in the past might never have happened.
Oh yeah, he's been great with me. I tell people in my department, I said, he's very good. If I ask and I explain why I need it, he really does understand, even though he doesn't have the knowledge base necessarily of the fire department. He's learning and he's trusting me to give him that information and allowing my expertise to sway him to do certain things that maybe a normal person would not. And he's been great with us.
Well, this is his team now, you and Mike.
Yeah.
And Greg Kears, who does a good job. That's another thing we didn't mention, the OEM component. Got to have, you know, work together with the OEM, and Greg Kears is, he's doing a great job. I had the pleasure of, again, working in different assignments with him when he was a police sergeant. And I think that's important. You have people that are not narrow-minded, that have the foresight to see where it should go. And you know, with Brian, I was talking to a lot of the firemen last night and said, you know what? Brian's the right guy, as Chief Ferranti was for the police department, that bomb to get that department going in the right direction. I think he was offered a contract. I don't know where that's going to go yet.
Good.
That's rumors. But and the other thing I wanted to mention, Rich Bloom told me years ago, Hoboken was short apparatus. There really, a few of them broke down. Jersey City had lent one for part-time, but at the same time, Jersey City was a little strapped. And he made a call to New York. And it's kind of ironic because I have a similar story. We needed to do a flyover with the helicopter, an event that we were going to have. And our chief at the time, LeBruno, says to me, I don't know how we're going to get it. I made a phone call. NYPD was right there. Rich made a call over there. FDNY, he was telling me about Red Square, where they call it Red Square because there's all apparatus. And how FDNY lent.
You need?
That's amazing.
He hooks me up with his staff, and he actually gave us a tour of their headquarters, and we got a lot of good ideas from there. Every time we go over there, they go above and beyond to try and help us out.
I had that relationship.
And we're the little guys.
Yeah, I had that relationship with the PD. It's amazing. Why reinvent the wheel?
Right.
You learn from the best.
Right. And we've had since the 60s a mutual aid agreement with New York City and Jersey City. Basically, because of the Holland Tunnel, we share it. Depending on the traffic flow, we'll go in one end and they'll go in another. So we really do work together a lot. And we're starting to do a lot more now, too. You talk about with Hoboken and a lot of the cooperation and mutual aid. We have a county initiative now that we're getting federal money to support us is for the high rises. A high rise fire is a very difficult fire to fight, and it's labor intensive, and you need a lot of staff. And there's not a lot of staff in Hudson County. We're the big guys on the block with 600, and we'll send on a first alarm assignment 30 or 40 firefighters, whereas Hoboken maybe only has 12 or so. So we're pooling our resources together because Hoboken has high rises, Jersey City does. We're teaming up with Newark also. And under this, right now we're going to start training together. So we're all fighting the fire the same way. Communications, everything else. We're really working towards that.
When we come back from break, I want to get your thoughts on communication. I'm Anthony Romano. We'll be back after our break.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, all the things.
We're back. Pat O'Melia here in the North Bergen studios. I want to remind everybody, make your donations to the American Red Cross, $5, $10, $20, whatever you can afford. If you can donate blood, we're also looking for that. I'm going to throw this down to our Seaside studio where you have Mayor Tony Boz in the host chair and Under Sheriff Rick Berquist. Take it away, Seaside.
Quick, Mayor. It went by quick. I was 31 then. Now I'm 71, and I'm bald-headed. But I followed your career, and I'd like to talk a little bit about that because You were a summer officer when I served on council my first year, 41 years ago, and you have a tremendous amount of experience in law enforcement. Let's talk a little bit about how you started your career.
As you said, I started in Seaside Heights in 1977 as a seasonal officer. It was back before they called them special law enforcement officers. I went to a small town in Ocean County, Ocean Gate, for 3 years after that, and then I started in Brick in 1980.
And in Brick, you rose through the ranks to end up your career as?
I retired as chief in 2015.
Chief of Police.
Yes, sir.
Which is quite an honor, and it's a large township within the community, the county of Ocean, and your achievements are well known throughout the county. And again, you're now the undersheriff in Ocean County, and I know you have many responsibilities, but can you name some of them?
My primary duty is judicial security, but I also am responsible for a lot of the infrastructure that supports the Sheriff's Department.
And infrastructure is something we're going to talk about as related to your past experiences. I know that you've shared your talks with me previously. You had, previous to Sandy, which was devastating to us, you were involved in other disaster areas. Could you talk about that a little bit?
In 2005, I was fortunate enough to go down with the first wave of the task force organized by the state police here in New Jersey to support the efforts in New Orleans following Katrina. Little did I know how important that experience would be 6 years later following Superstorm Sandy. We learned a lot down there in New Orleans that we were able to bring back and apply here following Sandy.
And at that time, you weren't chief of police, you were?
I was a captain at that time.
You were a captain.
96 homes burned to the ground on the Barrier Island. We had several homes on the mainland, on the eastern side of the mainland, burn as well. The storm surge and the subsequent flooding affected thousands of homes. I don't recall the number now, but it was several thousand homes in the township. Some of those homes are still not yet occupied. People are still recovering.
You mentioned emergency management. When you were there, and obviously you brought some of your experiences from the past from New Orleans, what were some of the things that you saw differently when you came back in your emergency management capacity?
I would think that the scope that I was concerned with at the time, when I was in New Orleans, my only concern was a 21-man team. Following Sandy, I was responsible for the entire police department as well as the fire service and the EMS. Fortunately, I had an incredibly good team, great deputy coordinators. The command staff in the police department was top shelf, and they really did a good job.
I know you share other responsibilities with the sheriff and the other undersheriff, and we depend a lot on emergency management from a county standpoint to the local standpoint. I know you meet with the from a county standpoint to the local standpoint. I know you meet with the sheriff regularly and so forth. I know it's not your division right now, but do you discuss it openly about what could happen in the future in emergency management in the county?
The emergency management system, the simplest way to think about it is about communication and resources. And if you think about it as a pyramid, the municipalities funnel their requests and their needs through the emergency management coordinators at the county level, and then they forward that up to the regional operations center in Trenton during an event. And they're able to coordinate all of our response and all of the resources. There were always a lot of things that we could have done better prior to and throughout the event. No significant failures that I saw. I think we needed to work on our communication a little bit better prior to the storm and our communication following the storm. Though here in this part of Ocean County, we did well. We met in Seaside Heights on a regular basis upstairs in the meeting room with the state police, our National Guard partners. And then when we got the out-of-state police officers to come in and let some of our people stand down and get arrested, they participated in those meetings
I used
the
word failures. I should have said some of our shortfalls that we weren't expecting. That's what I should have said, not failures. And again, I was there, and I remember meeting upstairs and going and just talking. Right now, I believe, and I got to look at Seaside Heights, obviously, I believe we're better prepared. But I was asked a question tonight by the senator, what do I think needs to be done? I think there, in my opinion, more coordination with the state, not emergency management, with other state agencies. So there's a constant feedback of change, recommendations, funding for equipment for these type of disasters, because each of our municipalities, no matter small or large, face financial constraints. Sure. And there are things that we might want to do, but we can't purchase, such as equipment in a storm and so forth, and storm drainage systems. Early on, we had a few other people that we interviewed, and we talked about our dunes, which I know you're familiar with, and they're starting to come apart, be a part of our landscape. Seaside Heights, we're going to have ours started in November. You were involved in, I think, Bricktown now. I know you're not chief anymore, but I believe Bricktown has completed its project. They're pretty near. Have you driven down that way?
Yeah, I believe the area.
It saved some significant damage where it caused us and Bricktown and so forth more problems.
That's
if we had the dunes, we could have been less severely damaged. If we go, Rick, to your experience now with the undersheriff's officer, do you meet regularly? And I know you talk about your divisions and so forth, yours. Is there something that you tell your counterparts, here's my story, and listen to my story? Because maybe they weren't involved like you were. You were heavily involved.
Yeah. And we do. And I mean, look, it's a learning process. Every time there's an event like this, regardless of where it's at in this country or this world, we try to learn from that. We try to get some takeaways from how can we be better prepared for another event here, because it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, and what can we do better to serve our population.
I know you worked with different peoples as the chief of police that came to help us. Do you remember any specific groups or states that came to help Bricktown?
It was kind of ironic. There was, we had Rhode Island, Illinois, Louisiana, and there were a couple of other states that I don't recall at the moment, but they were on our radio frequency at the time and listening to the different accents. Yeah. It was interesting to see the Louisiana troopers up here. And
not only law enforcement, but religious groups and just individuals, how good they were to our particular problems in New Jersey. And the telethon is to ask our viewers to open up their pocketbook and their hearts to these people that are now suffering the way we did. And it's not going to be an easy comeback, and it still hurts. Do I still look as handsome as I did before?
You certainly do, Mayor.
Thank you. With that, I'd like to thank our viewers and to thank you, Rick, once again. Good night.
I'm back here in the North Bergen studio, Hudson Media Group. Pat O'Melia here. I want to thank Tony Boz and Under Sheriff Rick Berquist for yeoman job down there. Actually, I got a whole group of people we need to thank, but most importantly, the American Red Cross. They're the ones on the ground there helping the people in North Carolina. You know, they just had to think back to us with Sandy 6 years ago, what their situation is. And pretty dire at the moment down there. They got floods, home loss, dirty water, bacteria, diseases in the water, you name it. They got the issues down there. You got homeless people, you got sick people. It's pretty much what we had here in Jersey. Again, let's pay it forward, help the people in North Carolina, and the best way to do that is making a donation to the American Red Cross. $5, $10, whatever you can afford. Hey, you can afford more? Send it on in. But do what you can. Remember, we were in the same situation 6 years ago as they are down there. And hopefully I don't have to do any more of these telethons. This is my second for the hurricanes. You know, somewhere down the line we want to start doing shows for fire victims here in our local communities in Hudson County and Ocean County. I'd rather not do any of these live shows to ask you to make donations. That means something terrible. And listen, $5, $10, $20, Doesn't sound like a lot, but that can make a difference. So if you can, please, the American Red Cross, it helps our fellow citizens down here in North Carolina, try to get them to recover quicker than we did from Sandy. And like I said earlier, there's still a lot of our communities that still have issues with Sandy. And in shows following up, you know, we'll talk about the scams that are perpetrated. I'll get some of the people from Ocean County. You know, there's a lot of things they have to overcome in North Carolina, same as we did. I want to thank a lot of people here. Senator Ray Lesniak, I got to look at the film, but I think he did a great job in the host chair. He was filling in for Senator Steve Sweeney for whatever emergency occurred there. Senator and Mayor of North Bergen, Nicholas Sacco, he came in, gave us a good 15 minutes, plus he wrote a nice check, as I understand it. Freeholder Bill O'Day, you know, he had another engagement to go, but because of the very late freeholder Anthony Romano, who was complaining about 495 traffic coming out of Hoboken, I could have made it to Seaside quicker than he made it from Hoboken to North Bergen, but he has arrived. We want to thank Bill for doing a yeoman job. He did about an hour or so. Actually, I think Senator Lesniak did about an hour. Bill O'Day's guest, Abe Anton, great job. We had the trio from Tom's River. You had my buddy, Laurie Urick, Councilwoman, Terrence Turnback. I didn't see Terrence, but I couldn't watch the whole thing. I'm doing things here in North Bergen. My buddy, to do some hosting if we do that show. Assemblyman, my personal friend, Assemblyman and author, Irish Lullaby is available on Amazon. Please get it. He wrote the book. I think that's Louis' third book. But I got to when we start getting the studio back in gear here, we'll bring Louis on and we'll push that book a little bit more. Undersheriff, very late, Anthony Romano donating his time, did a yeoman job there at the desk, even though he was supposed to do like an hour, only did like 15 minutes. But again, 495 traffic. From the Red Cross, Jocelyn Gilman. She came here. She did a great interview. Everybody at the Red Cross does a great job, especially Jocelyn. And again, I cannot reiterate this enough. Please make a donation, 5, 10, whatever you can. It does make a difference. My crew, Greg Schultz, who's been running the switching here in North Bergen. He's also been switching for Seaside Heights. You got Mike Robner down in Seaside Heights. Did a great job there. We only had like one technical difficulty, and hope you didn't even notice it. Greg Bukshiwani from Crystal Clear Productions of Bayonne. He was the director down there in the Seaside Heights. Greg's been with me since I got into television back in 2004. The crew from Comcast Cable, Deb Donato, that whole group got us the time slots, and Dave and the group who made sure the show got on the air. I want to thank you all, but more importantly, I want to thank you for the donations. Thank you for watching, and please take a minute, $5, $10, $20, whatever you can. If you want to donate blood, get in touch with the Red Cross to donate blood. You know, we're all trying to help our neighbors down here in North Carolina, and like I said, we were in that situation here in with Sandy. We're trying to pay it forward. Please help us make the donation to the American Red Cross. I'm Pat O'Melia. I think I'm out of time. Am I out of time? I'm out of time. Thank you for watching again. Thank you for donating. You be good, you be safe. I'll talk to you during the week. Good night.